Darkness is defined as the absence of light, but it seems that wherever you go in the universe, there's always something that produces light. So what is the darkest place in this universe? Let's start off on Earth, where we get nearly all of our natural light from the sun. This local star is so bright that it can be seen from billions of kilometers away in the vacuum of space. But as anyone who has ever been in a dark room knows, is that we have certain materials that can block out and absorb light itself. In fact, we use the term halving thickness to define a material's ability to block out radiation, such as visible light. For example, air has a halving thickness of 15,000 centimeters, so if you had 1 unit of radiation travel through this 15,000 centimeters of air, the air would absorb 0.5 units of radiation, while it would take only 1 centimeter of lead to do the exact same thing. So would a room made of lead be the darkest place in the universe? Well, not quite, because even though you may be able to block out radiation from the sun, the room itself is producing radiation in the form of infrared and radio waves. So are there any places on Earth that have minimal radiation? Let's take a look at the Kola Super Deep Borehole, which was built by the Soviet Union in the 1970s. They were able to drill an astounding 12,262 meters into the Earth, making it the deepest artificial point on the planet. At the bottom of this hole, there would pretty much be no radiation from the sun, but it would be polluted with enough radiation from the Earth's crust to boil water on the ground. A different kind of pollution which we may need to take into account in order to find the darkest place in the universe is light pollution. This is caused by any sort of man-made lighting, such as streetlights or even skyscrapers, and we're exposed to this every single day, which is why you don't see as many stars in the night sky in urban areas as you would in rural areas. But what about areas that don't have to fish through any sort of light pollution? In the middle of the southern Pacific Ocean exists a location called Point Nemo, which is considered the most isolated place on Earth, being 2,688 kilometers from the nearest terrestrial land. This is the farthest location away from man-made lighting on Earth, making it the darkest artificially lit place on Earth. Although you would still be receiving light from the sun every day and light from the moon every night. That brings up the question, how much light do we actually receive from the moon? Well, sometimes it might seem bright, especially during a full moon, but it's actually 500,000 times dimmer than the sun. On the Apollo 13 mission in 1970, we sent the crew 400,171 kilometers to the dark side of the moon, setting the record for the farthest distance a human has ever been from the Earth. On a random tangent, the dark side of the moon actually receives just as much sunlight as the close side of the moon, so there is actually no such thing as the dark side of the moon. One other fact about the moon is that it doesn't have an atmosphere, so it's exposed to more light and radiation from the sun, making temperatures range from 120 degrees Celsius to negative 233 degrees Celsius. By the way, heat and light are actually both forms of radiation. So generally speaking, the warmer an area is, the more likely it is to be well lit. So now I'm going to introduce you to the most empty places in the universe. These regions of space are called voids and are virtually dead zones in the cosmos. But generally, they're close enough to stars and galaxies where they would actually produce a nice view for an observer. So, in order for someone to experience true isolation and darkness, we will have to examine supervoids. They are defined as vast regions in space that literally have nothing in them. And by that I mean they have no light, no temperature, and no matter. The largest of these supervoids is the giant void in NGH. This distance is so large that it would take 1 billion light years to travel between the two nearest galaxies. This gap is so big that 10,000 Milky Way galaxies could easily fit inside of it. And if you were placed at the center of this cosmic void, this is what you would see. The distance between you and the nearest light source is so large that you would not be able to see anything. Not even yourself. So, is it safe to say that this giant void is the darkest place in the universe? Well, maybe. You see, we can only see 46 billion light years in any direction. After that, we don't really know what may or may not exist. Thank you for watching Jacksci. Click here if you want to see another science video, and click here because it is the awesome button, and you're going to want to click on that button. And for now, you stay bright, planet Earth.